Чего не хотите?
Волнуется.
Заказу усиления морских сил Дальнего Востока. Соответственно, одновинтовой торговли.
Vladimir Putin has just made his first ever visit to the Kuril Islands. And the timing, location, and optics matter. On Iturup, Putin toured a fish plant, tasted local roe, visited a hospital and school, and met residents. But this was only one side of the trip. Before and during the visit, Putin was also aboard Russia's Guards missile cruiser Varyag, watching Pacific Fleet exercises and talking about the security of Russia's eastern borders. So why did Putin put civilian life, a disputed territory, and Russian military power into the same frame? That is what this visit was really about. First, the location. Iturup is one of the 4 southern Kuril Islands claimed by Japan, which calls the island Etorofu and refers to the group as its northern territories. Russia controls the islands, but Japan has never abandoned its claim. The dispute goes back to the final days of World War II, when Soviet forces seized the islands after Japan surrendered. The territorial dispute has remained a major obstacle to a formal Russia-Japan peace treaty. And now, for the first time, Putin himself has gone there. That is different from Moscow simply issuing a statement about Russian sovereignty. The Russian president physically visiting Iturup is a highly visible assertion of Moscow's control, and Tokyo has strongly objected to the visit.
The Northern Territories are an inherent part of Japan's territory, both historically and under international law. This latest visit to Etorofu Island, Iturup for Russia, by the incumbent Russian president is incompatible with Japan's consistent position regarding the Northern Territories. It also hurts the feelings of the Japanese people and is absolutely unacceptable.
But Putin did not arrive on Iturup simply to talk territory. He spent much of the visit showing the island as a living Russian community. At a fish processing plant, Putin sampled local roe and heard stories of enormous tuna and halibut. Officials described 20 to 30 whales gathering in nearby waters and talked about dramatic changes in marine life. Then came the more everyday side of Iturup. Putin visited the local hospital, where officials raised the need to replace an ambulance. His response was brief: replace it. He visited a school, spoke with children, and met local residents who explained what life is really like on the remote island. Putin joked about the weather being like a resort. The locals had another description: 8 months of cold, fog, and wind. And that matters because Moscow isn't just presenting Iturup as a point on a map. It is presenting it as Russian territory, with people, infrastructure, industry, and everyday life. But then Putin's trip took a very different turn. From the fish processing plant and school, the Russian president moved to the deck of a missile cruiser. Putin boarded the Guards missile cruiser Varyag to observe the final stage of Pacific Fleet exercises off Russia's Far East. And now the message was no longer about life on an island. It was about combat readiness. Putin thanked the sailors and stressed the importance of maintaining the readiness of Russia's Navy and armed forces, particularly in the Pacific. Wearing a naval uniform and peaked cap aboard the Varyag, Putin was no longer simply touring a remote Russian community. He was putting Russia's military presence in the region directly into the picture. Speaking to the crew, Putin made it clear that Moscow does not view the Pacific Fleet as sitting safely behind the action. You are not in the rear. You are also on the front lines. Putin went further, saying, "Our duty is to ensure the security of the Russian state on all its borders, in all its territories." He also tied the readiness of the armed forces to Russia's ongoing special military operation.
I would like to thank the commander, the commanding officer, the deputy commander, and all of you for the exercises and for organizing them. I won't go over again just how important it is to maintain the combat readiness of the fleet and all the armed forces, and it is particularly important in this region. Nothing is more important than tackling the challenges on the front line as part of a special military operation. But you are not in the rear. You too are on the front line, because the combat readiness of the armed forces and the Navy must be maintained to defend the entire territory of the Russian Federation. This is vital for the country and for ensuring its security. So, thank you for today's exercise and for your service. And so that nothing gets cold, enjoy your meal.
And that is why Putin's first ever Kuril Islands visit goes beyond the photo opportunity. For Japan, it is a highly visible assertion of Russian control over territory Tokyo still claims. For Russia's Far East, Putin is showing the Kurils as civilian territory that Moscow says it is developing and defending. And for the wider Indo-Pacific, the military message is impossible to miss. Putin's appearance aboard the Varyag, the Pacific Fleet exercise, and his front lines, warning all put Russia's eastern military posture into focus. So the real picture from Iturup is this: a remote island, a decades-old territorial dispute, a civilian population, and a Russian missile cruiser operating nearby. Putin didn't just visit the Kurils, he put Russia's claim to the islands and the military power behind that claim on display.